Hey, have you ever wondered if you've lived before? Perhaps you've had very compelling experiences of other lives beyond this one. And in fact, in the work that I do, I've seen a number of people that have hooks and hang-ups from other lives that are affecting this one right now. And in the work that I do, I approach health and purpose and wealth from a multidimensional perspective that involves taking into consideration the fact that we have a larger footprint than this lifetime. And one of the most incredible things that I've discovered is in human design that there's a way to actually map out where and when our past lives have happened. Now, I didn't really believe this at first. The first time that I saw this, I was like, maybe I'm just making this up. But something came through, and this came through about a year ago. And it took me a while to work with it and to test it and validate it. But now I'm at a point in time where I've done enough sessions and readings with people that have had very, very positive results, and through their own experience have really felt that this approach is like a confirmation of their past lives. And not only that, but when we can identify the past lives, we can also release some of the hooks and ways that they show up in this life and affect our current life. So I'll give you an example. Recently I had a client who they felt weird about charging for their gifts and services, and they were a very brilliant medium and healer. However, they felt that they had vows of poverty, and these vows of poverty prohibited them from getting what they deserve in this lifetime. And of course, this can often be influenced by other points in time where, you know, our gifts and talents maybe were done in exchange or barter system. However, they're not appropriate for the current day. So I was able to use this particular tool for this individual to actually identify the exact past life when it happened and release those patterns, which is super cool. So I'm going to show you in this video the technique in its entirety of how to do this. And if you like this too, I can also do readings for you, because there is a bit of complexity with this and there is a bit of nuance and skill. So some of you are going to be able to look at this and going to be able to run with this, and other people are going to say, hey, this is really cool, but I really like your help, Dave. And that's totally fine. So anyway, I'm going to jump in this video and I'm going to show you the technique of how to combine astrocartography with human design to map out some of the past life experiences that may be affecting you in this life. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to start by sharing with you the charts that I have up. So there's basically 4 tabs that I got here that you'll need in order to do this past life exploration, okay? So the first one is, this is my natal chart, and this is a sidereal native chart using whole signs. And so I've got this up on astro.com. And I just use whole signs, and I like Fagan Bradley sidereal, so this is generally what I use. You can use whatever you want. Whatever you're working with will work for this method, because that's your identity that you're currently exploring. So, you know, if you prefer tropical and placidus, that's totally fine. The next chart I have up here is my astrocartography chart. So this is where it shows the lines geographically. So this is where we figure out where in the world. And then I go over to my human design, and now I'm using my true sidereal human design because I work with true sidereal mostly. You can use tropical for this if that's your chosen method. And so this is where we figure out the gate that this placement corresponds to. And then finally, I'm going to put a link to this. This is the global consciousness cycle. And this is where we're actually going to map that particular gate in time. Okay, so there's a couple steps here to this process. So in this case, I'm going to walk you through a worked example using my own chart. But I've done this for many people. It's just that this work is so intimate and so precise for people that I don't want to be, you know, without their permission, it doesn't feel right to use theirs. So I'm more than happy to just do this worked example with mine. But some of the biggest revelations and aha moments and clearings have happened with my clients. However, like I said, if I don't have their permission, I'm obviously not going to use their chart. So first of all, what I'm looking at here is I'm wondering, okay, what are some of the areas that I might have karmic hooks or tethers with regards to my gifts coming through? And in astrology, we know that Saturn often speaks to the lessons in this life that we're carrying over from past lives that are going to be very much major themes in our life work. And often it's said that if you know how to work with Saturn, you're going to have a very easy life. So I'm going to take my Saturn placement, which you can see is in Libra, and it's in the first house. It's in my body, essentially, you know, the physical identity. So here's Saturn. It's at 20 degrees, 18 minutes of Libra. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go here and I'm going to find where my Saturn lines run in the world. So this one here, it runs through the tip of the South Isle in New Zealand and then northern Russia. That's not really the Saturn line I'm going to work with. So what you have to understand here is that there are many different Saturn lines. So finding the right one does take a little bit of skill. It does take a little bit of intuition to do this, okay? So again, this midheaven line, again, it's going off of West Africa. That doesn't really have a resonance with me. But when I look at this Saturn line here, so this is the the ascending Saturn line and the descendant Saturn line, I'm saying, oh, India, that's very interesting because culturally my father came from India, and actually he came from sort of not too far off of this particular Saturn line. So for me, I'm getting an intuitive hit that this is the Saturn line I want to look at. The other one, of course, would be the one that runs through northern Ontario and down sort of the eastern side of the US and through Mexico as well. But that one I'm not really getting a lot of hits off of. I'm kind of getting a minor hits off of here, but this one really is the one that I want to look at, especially because I have a heritage or culture. It's part of my cultural lineage. So here what I'm going to look at, I'm going to say, okay, wow, this definitely starts to ring, especially because my father and his family, they moved to Pakistan after the India-Pakistan War, and Pakistan became its own country. So this here is a very interesting part of the world. And right now I'm kind of tuning in with that and I'm saying, oh, this line's giving me something right now, especially where it crosses the descending Pluto. And so now what I do is I then say, okay, this is the line I want to work with. It's Saturn. It's the planet Saturn, which is your lessons this lifetime, your past karma, your family karma. And so I'm saying, okay, this is going to be a massive unlock for my gifts and skills in the world. All right, going over now to my true sidereal human chart, human design chart. I'm going to look at the personality because personality is what we can control and the design is more what's sort of embedded. I can do this assessment for the design, and if I wanted to, I would just run a chart based on the design date, which is here, and I would get other information, but I'm going to stick with the personality for now, okay? And so now I'm looking here at gate 48, line 6. And this particular gate is the gate of depth, detailed investigation. It has to do with black magic. So I say, oh, maybe this was a life where there was sorcery involved, and maybe I had, you know, gifts and I was very resourceful, but maybe there's something to clear up with regards to this particular past life energy. So what I want to do next after this is I want to look at the, read a little bit more about gate 48, and I have a guide in the description below where you can do that. And I see, oh my goodness, the shadow of this is inadequacy. And this is maybe using the system to strategically to hide behind as I manipulate the fears and others for personal gain. Well, that might be something that I've done in the past. I've definitely felt those themes deep within me. And the gift of this is resourcefulness, and the transcendental quality is wisdom. So obviously we want to be living out of the resourcefulness, which is by facing our shadows and fears, finding the inherent abundance of nature and luck, and where our luck and timing improve greatly. You know, and also too, looking at the astrology of this, Saturn in Libra is exalted, meaning Saturn likes to be in Libra, and Saturn is very fair when it's in Libra. So this is an exalted placement. And so what I want to do now is I say, okay, cool. How are some of the ways in which I may have, you know, abused power for personal gain? And how are some of the ways I can actually take that energy and transmute it into resourcefulness, where my luck and timing improve and where greater wisdom comes through? So when I work with the Saturn energy, this is how I get to the point of directly data streaming. Some people call it channeling, but I call it data streaming from my oversoul body. And so this is the gift or the acidic quality of resolving those themes of personal gain and manipulation. All right, and these are pretty big themes, right? So we have to be able to face these shadows within ourselves in order to come to the gift. So again, here, this is that Saturn, gate 48, line 6. And now what I do is I go over to this chart, which is a pretty big, heavy-duty chart here, as you can see, and I'm looking for when in the global consciousness cycle was gate 48 activated. Now, there's going to be multiple points in time that this gate was activated. I can immediately see one in the future where gate 48 was active. And this gate here is from the year 2439 to 2850. Well, that's far into the future. And right now, I'm not really getting sort of a resonance with that. But if I look for other instances of gate 48, I can see, oh, there's a gate 48 that happened right here. So that's interesting. That's a little bit more recent. This is around the time of the writing of the Vedas in India. And so 857 BC to 446. Now we can actually hone in even more because we have information about the line. And the way the lines progress through time is it goes line 6, line 5, line 4, line 3, line 2, line 1. So I can narrow down this range because I know it's a line 6 to 857 BC to about 788 BC. Okay, so that's one hit there, and that actually feels really good when I tune into that. The next instance of 48 is in 4153, which is much earlier, but that one doesn't really have that feeling. And of course, there's one here in 14,000 BC, but that was before the Great Flood, so that's a completely different Earth configuration. So I'm really kind of inclined to say this one feels like the minute I kind of tuned into this one feels, okay, cool. So I've got this line running through modern-day Pakistan and the west coast of India happening around the time that the Vedas were written. And that time in history was a time when basically wisdom was pouring through people and they were transcribing, and there was a lot of power. And with that power, obviously comes the abuse of power. With this wisdom that's flowing through during this time, there is the potentiality for people to misuse that for their personal gain. That feels like, hey, this is something. So now I've got a location in the world for a past life, which is here, right? Running down this line, that's here, and I've already correlated it with my own, you could say, ancestral place of origin, okay? And now I've got this here telling me that this past lifetime happened sometime between 857 BC and about 788 BC. So if I sit with that and I start to tune into, could I have possibly lived during that time? And now I'm seeing sort of an image. And this here is a little bit of psychic development. This is where we can't just go with the charts. This is where we have to extrapolate based on the evidence that our charts provided. And we actually have to tune into the possibility of this. This is where the imagination comes into play. But all of a sudden, I'm starting to see this individual, right? And I'm starting to see this individual who was excited by the wisdom that was flowing through during the time of the writing of the Vedas. And now what I'm starting to get information on is I'm starting to see like almost like the hologram of this individual walking around using this power in various ways. And I can then run a process to resolve that energy. Even knowing about it starts to resolve the energy. But when you run a quantum process, you can actually take that and you can neutralize the negative effects, and that you can then help guide that particular expression of the gate from inadequacy to resourcefulness and finally to wisdom. And so this is a very, very powerful way of working with past life energy. And it's also, something that I've developed. And again, it's not in the original, human design source material. This is a very, you could say, avant-garde or innovative approach to working with human design. But I've verified this enough through my one-on-one clients, and we've had massive healings. People have been able to resolve these major themes around the misuse of power, around their wealth, around love life gone wrong, depending on what planet that they're working with. So the planet the time period, and the location often have significance for people. And so if you like this approach, and if you're feeling right now like, hey, this is something cool, I invite you to try it out for yourself. And you can just rewatch this video to see the steps that I took. First of all, it is finding the planet or theme of interest in your astrology chart, noticing what house it's in, and then from there we find the line and location on the map, and then we go to our human design chart and we see where that gate is for that particular planet in the personality, and then we go to the global consciousness cycle and we find different instances of it throughout time and history. So let me know what you think of this approach. Let me know what you come up with when you try it out. And of course, if you want a personalized reading, if you feel like there's some sort of a genetic pressure or there's some sort of a karmic pressure that's showing up in your life that's beyond your blinders, that's causing these problems, feel free to book a session with me. I've got the link below. I've actually got a deal on to anyone who books a session before the end of May. It's at a very special rate because I've got a lot of new followers and I'm kind of restructuring things on my end. So if that interests you, I'd love to see you, and I'd love to also hear your experiences with this approach. All right, take care.